Good evening and thank you. And what an appropriate way to start the new year. I'm honored and humbled to have been selected by you to serve as your sheriff and to work side by side with the amazing group of law enforcement professionals gathered here tonight. Thank you to Mashona. Thank you, Mary, for the invitation to participate as one of the guest speakers. And thanks to anyone and everyone who participated in the planning for this event. Finally, thanks to each and every one of you for taking valuable time out of your lives to turn out this evening and show support for your community's law enforcement agencies. Chief Orzak already mentioned this, but I was reminded at the similar event that we had in here on Sunday night of the biblical verse found in the book of Mark, chapter 5, verse 9, that reads, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." Your community's law enforcement representatives here this evening are truly the community's peacemakers, and we are truly and uniquely blessed, if for no other reason than because you took the time to let us know that you support us and that you care for us. We gather here tonight in part because of many law enforcement related events that have occurred throughout this country and that are beyond our control and that did not directly involve us, and yet they absolutely affect us. We know and understand that because of the profession that we have chosen and the uniform that we wear, we can be collectively labeled and looked upon with suspicion, and our own actions can be called into question because of the actions taken by a law enforcement officer working hundreds of miles from us, regardless of the circumstances, and regardless of whether we personally agree or disagree with that individual's officer's decision. We know that recently others who wear a similar uniform to ours have been murdered in the streets or been targeted with gunfire, apparently merely because they chose to serve as their community's peacemakers. But should we be offended by constructive and reasoning questioning of our actions? Should we act outside of our professional parameters and ethics because of the actions of apparently deranged individuals toward the police that have occurred elsewhere? Absolutely not. You, as a community and through your elected officials, have entrusted to us far-reaching legal authority by conveying upon us through our employment the role of your community's peacemakers. You have entrusted to us the authority, under appropriate circumstances, to deprive members of your community of their liberty in the form of arrest and with appropriate judicial order incarceration. Knowing that some individuals within your community conduct themselves in a violent fashion and with complete disregard for the rights of others, you have entrusted to us the authority to use force to effect an arrest, including the authority to use deadly force and to take a human life if absolutely necessary, so that we can defend you and defend ourselves. Now, because of the vast authority that you have placed in our hands, I submit to you that we, in turn, have the grave and absolute responsibility to you to utilize that authority with the utmost discretion, tact, and restraint, while we readily recognize the dangers that we face. We have the absolute responsibility to provide you with professional and credible law enforcement services and to work daily and in conjunction and collaboration with you to improve our operations. We want you to be confident and trusting that we are doing the right and proper thing, and that any use of force that may be warranted in the course of our duties is appropriate and justified. With that thought in mind, and understanding that force is necessary in certain situations, we ask for your empathy and for your understanding as we do our work throughout the communities that we serve on your behalf. I'd ask you to please close your eyes for a minute to imagine yourself in the shoes of those who do that work in situations that they could face and many times do face on a regular basis. Imagine that you are that state highway patrol trooper stopping that weaving vehicle on a lonely stretch of roadway at 3 a.m., knowing full well that your closest backup is 20 minutes away, and having no idea who or what awaits you when you look into the driver's side window. Imagine that you are that deputy sheriff arriving alone in a domestic violence call. As you are fighting with the husband in an attempt to arrest him after you have just separated him from his bloodied wife, you notice that she has disappeared after yelling that she has something for you interfering with her marriage, and she is now walking back out of the house with her hand hidden from view. Imagine the chaos that you would face as that city, township, or village police officer arriving alone at the scene of a street fight outside of a bar where 20 people are fighting with baseball bats and other weapons. Numerous individuals are already bleeding from various wounds, and they all refuse to stop fighting. Imagine that you are that dispatcher, intently trying to make sense of the caller's screams and to locate her so that you can send her the help that she so desperately needs. When you hear the distinct sound of gunshots and the line goes dead. Imagine that you're that corrections officer in the county jail, in a jail cell trying to restrain and overcome the superhuman strength of the mentally ill inmate who is hearing voices and for whom there are no state hospital beds available, who is bleeding profusely because of self-inflicted stab wounds, and who wants to kill you because of the voices that he hears. Now please open your eyes. Based on the scenarios that you just saw in your minds, can you see why we need your understanding? Can you clearly see why we need your support? Can you clearly see why we need your prayers? As with most professions, ours has developed a code of ethics to guide us as we serve you. Many of you know Sergeant Ken Rankins of the Cedar Point Police Department. And Kenny, if you're here, raise your hand. I don't think you made it tonight. Sergeant Rankins also serves as commander of the Sandusky Police Academy. For several years, he has had the Academy cadets recite the code before each training session in an attempt to orient them to the community's expectations, so that you know what is expected of us, by us. Here is our code. As a law enforcement officer, my fundamental duty is to serve all mankind, to safeguard lives and property, to protect the innocent against deception, the weak against depression or intimidation, and the peaceful against violence or disorder, and to respect and defend the constitutional rights of all persons, to preserve liberty, equality, and justice. I will keep my private life unsullied as an example to all, maintain courageous calm in the face of danger, scorn, or ridicule, develop self-restraint, and be constantly mindful of the welfare of others. Honest in thought and deed in both my personal and official life, I will be exemplary in obeying the laws of the land and the regulations of my agency. Whatever I see or hear of a confidential nature or that is confided to me in my official capacity will be kept ever secret unless revelation is necessary in the performance of my duty. I will never act officiously or permit personal feelings, prejudices, animosities, or friendships to influence my decisions. With no compromise for crime and with relentless pursuit of criminals, I will enforce the law courteously and appropriately, without fear or favor, malice or ill will, never employing unnecessary force or violence, and never accepting gratuities in exchange for leniency. I recognize the badge of my office as a symbol of public faith, and I accept it as a public trust to be held so long as I am true to the ethics of the police service. I will constantly strive to achieve those objectives and ideals, dedicating myself before God to my chosen profession, law enforcement. Now, we try to live up to our code every day. Do we all succeed? No, we don't. And we don't because, very simply, we are human. And our chosen profession does not magically cancel out our human failings. But if we make an honest mistake, can we own up to it and continue to do our best, trusting that you will understand, given the environment in which we work on your behalf? We hope and we pray that that is possible. In closing, trust that your attendance here today affects us in many positive ways that we may never be able to appropriately reduce to spoken words. Know that your support and prayers are appreciated and will never be forgotten, and know that we will continue to do our best on your behalf. Police lives matter because all lives matter. In order for us to protect and preserve your lives, so we must, within the parameters that have been legally and ethically established, protect our lives. Finally, I ask that while you are celebrating the Buckeyes' win over Alabama later this evening, take a minute to say a prayer for the dispatchers, officers on patrol, and corrections officers, whose performance of duty makes it possible for us to enjoy peace within our communities, and who are truly the community's guardian angels. I would also ask that you say a similar prayer for our brothers and sisters in the fire service, working side by side with your law enforcement personnel for the safety of the public. May God continue to bless them, and may God continue to bless this community and all gathered here. Thank you very much.